West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. A lot going on this Friday night. Tonight we have some big developments in both of Special Counsel Jack Smith's investigations into Donald Trump. First, in the documents case, just minutes ago, we learned that Smith has filed 3 motions. He's asked that the ex-president's trial date, originally set for this August, be delayed until December 11th of this year. That is to give the government more time to address procedures involving the classified documents that are crucial to the prosecution's argument. Smith also requested a pre-trial conference regarding those classified documents and submitted a sealed list of witnesses that Donald Trump and his co-defendant, Walt Nauta, are not allowed to speak to personally per the terms of their release before trial. We're also looking at a major development in Jack Smith's other case related to January 6th. Specifically, the so-called fake elector scheme, which was one of many attempts by Trump and his allies to overturn the results of the 2020 election. NBC News has previously reported that 2 of the fake electors from Nevada testified before Jack Smith's federal grand jury earlier this month. Now, that detail alone is pretty telling, indicated that Smith and his team are actively pursuing the fake electors as part of a larger investigation into Donald Trump's unlawful attempts to stay in power after he lost the election. But a new twist today. A brand new report out now reveals these 2 fake electors who testified were offered partial immunity as part of their cooperation with the investigation, which certainly signals an escalation in this portion of the inquiry. Now, to explain why, we should first look at the bigger picture of the whole fake elector scheme. And I got to say, there were so many parallel efforts to overturn the election and keep Donald Trump in power unlawfully against the will of the American people, it can be difficult to keep track of them all. So in order to understand the fake elector scheme, you need to be familiar with some technical stuff about how the Electoral College works. Here is how Congressman Adam Schiff explained it during one of the January 6 hearings.
Under our Constitution, when we cast our votes for president, we are actually voting to send electors pledged to our preferred candidate to the Electoral College. In December, the electors in each state meet, cast their votes, and send those votes to Washington. There is only one legitimate slate of electors from each state. On the 6th day of January, Congress meets in a joint session to count those votes, and the winner of the Electoral College vote becomes the president.
So it's a weird process. I think we should get rid of it, but it's what we've got, right? So, for example, in 2020, when Joe Biden won, the state of Nevada, for instance, and its 6 electoral votes, the state's 6 Biden electors got together in December and they certified Joe Biden's victory.
Democrat Joe Biden now officially has Nevada's 6 electoral college votes. This morning, Nevada's electors met virtually, as you see here, to complete the process. Electors cast their ballots. You see there, they held them up so they could be seen by everybody watching. It's all a constitutional process, and it's taking place today all across the country.
Remember, it was COVID, so they were meeting via Zoom, right? But when those real electors were finished tallying, they then submitted that document you see on your screen with the signatures, right? They all signed it, attesting that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won their state's 6 electoral college votes. Now, this happens in some form or another in all 50 states, or at least that is what is supposed to happen. But Trump and his allies had other plans. Now, among their many schemes to overturn the results of the election, one was one in which they would promote fake Trump electors in 7 states he actually lost. And for each of these 7 states, the fake Trump electors got together and kind of did their own, pretend version of the real thing. They signed their own fake attestation declaring falsely that Donald Trump and not Biden won their state. The plan was to then submit these fake electors to Mike Pence on January 6th, where he had a few different options, right? He could either accept the fake Trump electors instead of the real ones and just declare Trump the winner, or he could say, oh, well, there's a conflict here. Really, who's to say? And set aside both the real and the fake electors in those 7 states and then declare Trump the winner. The official Nevada GOP account actually tweeted out a picture of their state's fake electors ceremony. Here is the fake document they put together. I mean, it's a real document, but it's fake in what it says. Received by the U.S. National Archives. They actually mailed it to the archives. In that document, they attest that they, and not those folks you saw on the Zoom call a moment ago, are the real electors for the state of Nevada, and that they are submitting their 6 electoral votes for Trump, not Biden. Was that true? It was not. So it should be obvious to anyone paying attention, this scheme was, at the very best, legally dubious. I mean, you can't swear on a piece of paper to misrepresent yourself to the government as electoral college elector when you are not an electoral college elector. And it seems like some of the fake electors actually knew that too. Listen to this. 2 slates of fake electors, the ones from Pennsylvania and New Mexico, they were actually smart enough to hedge their bets. Both groups added caveats to their fake documents, attesting they are only going to represent themselves as Trump electors if the results of the election were overturned in their respective states. As the New Mexico fake electors put it, we the undersigned, on the understanding it might later be determined that we are the duly elected and qualified electors for president and vice president, etc., right? See what they did there? They're like, this seems dodgy, but if, it turns out, then use us, but not, if not. The other 5 fake slates of electors, including Nevada, did not do that, however. They just said, we're the real deal. And it's not just the fake electors who likely knew what they were doing was wrong. This was very much a top-down effort, which brings us to this truly amazing email exchange between an attorney helping the fake electors in Arizona and Trump advisor Boris Epshteyn in December 2020. The lawyer for the fake electors writes, and I quote him here, "We would just be sending in fake electoral votes to Pence so that someone in Congress can make an objection when they start counting votes and start arguing that the fake votes should be counted." And then he catches himself and sends a follow-up email saying the following. Alternative votes, it's probably a better term than fake votes, adding a smiley face emoji. Nice save, bro. It's not just Trump allies who are pulling the strings here, and this is really crucial. There is evidence that Trump himself was in on the fake elector scheme. That brings us back to today's news. One of the fake electors who has apparently received immunity is this guy. He's the Nevada party chair, Michael McDonald. We saw him outside the courthouse in D.C., actually on the day that Trump was being arraigned in Miami. And he's already had his phone seized by the feds a year ago. He's also turned over his text messages to the January 6th committee. Texts which reveal that McDonald says he was in direct contact with Donald Trump himself when plotting the fake elector scam. No cutouts, no intermediaries. Quote, "We are on it. I have been on the phone this morning with the president, Eric Trump, Mark Meadows, and Mayor Giuliani. There is a major plan." Quote, "Was on the phone to President, Mark Meadows, Giuliani, and they want full attack mode." So the reason this fake elector scheme is so important from the perspective of a prosecutor looking into January 6th is that when it comes to the upper echelons of people that were directing this attempted coup, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, Rudy Giuliani, of course, Trump himself, there are frankly a lot of thorny legal questions about what you can prove and what's actually legal or not? Was Trump's big lie constitutionally protected speech? What about his remarks inciting the mob on January 6th? Were his attempts to overturn the election by pressuring Pence unlawful or simply corrupt and anti-democratic? I'm not a lawyer. I don't have answers to those questions. Fake elector scheme? Well, that seems different. Yeah, in some ways, it reminds me of the Trump documents case. I mean, we know Trump had the documents. We know Trump shouldn't have had the documents. We know Trump didn't give the documents back when asked, and he was caught red-handed when the FBI searched him. The fake elector scheme, from the perspective of a prosecutor, is similar in that there's a lot of just indisputable evidence. These electors fraudulently signed documents claiming they were the legitimate slate from their state when they were not. Those fake documents were then submitted to the government as though they were real, possibly, probably, in violation of the law. What's more, there is evidence that Trump's inner circle was warned the plan could be unlawful.
And so, to be clear, did you hear the White House counsel's office say that this plan to have alternate electors meet and cast votes for Donald Trump in states that he had lost was not legally sound?
Yes, sir.
And who was present for that meeting that you remember?
It was in our office. It was Mr. Meadows, Mr. Giuliani, and a few of Mr. Giuliani's associates.
So the fake electors case at the level of the fake electors seems pretty open and shut. The real question is, how much of it came at the direction of Donald Trump himself? If one of the fake electors who says he spoke to Trump about the plot is cooperating with investigators, presumably he could help answer that question. As could former Trump election official Michael Roman, a guy who was integral to plotting the fake elector scheme. The New York Times is now reporting he may speak with investigators as well, which could bring us one step closer to some actual consequences for the man most responsible for January 6th.
It is Monday, the 26th of June of 2023, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, the little Yorkie, is our door girl, and she will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, River City Hash Mondays, because that's what we do. We take whatever is left from the weekend and we repurpose it into a fabulous gourmet intellectual delight for your, well, consumption and, I don't know, sustenance. That's right. Emotional, intellectual, whatever. We're here for you. Okay, so many entendres, I can't even keep up myself. I better stop. All right, how was your weekend? We had some nice weather here, and knock on wood, it remains nice. Don't want to be in Canada, at least downwind from all those wildfires. Boy, we had those for years and years here, and knock on wood once again, as long as we have something to knock on. It hasn't started here yet, but it will, because that's how it goes, and, we're fatalists now. I remember reading a study when I was just beginning university, way back in the 70s, where people in the Northwest, the Willamette Valley in particular, would be more depressed on sunny days than on rainy days because there were so few sunny days. I always liked it. I always wanted to believe that was a true study because it sounds like it'd be correct. But I did read about the study. I didn't actually read the study, but I read about it, and, it stayed with me. Can you tell? All right. A little programming note. I did make another appearance on the Tim Coromal Show, and that will be rebroadcast this afternoon, but you can always pick up his podcasts at timcoromal.com. So go there and pick it up. We had some great fun, as we always do, and a great panel, as Tim is able to pull together every week. Well, every week that he's on, because sometimes they take off, like for holidays. Okay, what else is going on? Oh, yeah, boy. I thought Russian revolutions were supposed to be like Russian novels, really thick, dense, takes forever. I didn't know it was supposed to be like a short story. Jeez. Without any indefinite articles either. Wrote a short story, No indefinite articles, just blasted through. Got to not very far from Moscow, and then decided, oops, I better turn around. Yeah, what the hell was that all about? Well, at least it took the attention off of Hunter Biden, according to the GOP. Everything revolves around their grievance. It doesn't matter that the security and safety of the United States might be imperiled. Why else? In the 164 history of the Marines, for instance, they've never had, or they've never been without a commander until now. And why is that? Because some Southern secessionist football coach, Tuberville, has decided to put a hold on any nominations in the military until he gets his culture war de jure grievance addressed. And by addressed, I mean kowtow to their whims. An angel baby has full rights. A mom doesn't even have 3/5. You're not even 3/5 of a human, bitch. Get out of here. All right. Then we got like wacko guys. I don't know. They're sexually repressed or they're sickos, and I kind of think maybe they fall on the side of sicko, who say that we can't allow women to have birth control because ever since they had birth control, women have been getting uppity. Okay. With that kind of attitude, no wonder they seem uppity to you. All right. I don't know. I just believe in equal protection and due process for all. Okay. I'm not going to go and have my gender changed. I'm not. But why the hell would I deny that to someone else who has a medical procedure that they choose with their doctor and their family, and they're going to do it? And any time anybody wants to do anything new, it's got to be like, oh, you're a pedophile. I like chocolate chip cookies, and sometimes chocolate chip cookies with marshmallows and chocolate Hershey bars. And I don't use a graham cracker. I use a chocolate chip cookie instead. You're a pedophile. What? Anything new? Yeah, I got this new game controller. You're a pedophile. You got a new game controller? Only pedophiles do that. Anything they don't understand, they're going to put the charge of pedophile. It used to be just simply a commie. But then commies are pedophiles, so I guess it goes to show. All right. And then you look into it. And I bet that guy who says that women have been getting uppity since birth control, I bet there's some skeletons in his closet, probably under the age of 9. I wouldn't doubt it. Every time they say something as a condemnation, it is a confession. If they would just learn to live with themselves, be free. Not that learning to live with yourself and, taking advantage of little kids. I don't mean that kind of freedom. But it does kind of bother me that instead of addressing their own picadillos, they want to presume everybody else has the same. No, they don't. But I'll tell you what. I don't care who's looking into whose bedroom. Whoever is looking into another person's bedroom is going to say, that person is sick. While they're looking into another person's bedroom. It's just the way America is. Or maybe Western civilization. Maybe it's human nature. I don't know. But it seems sick. And the projection has gotten us into a world of trouble. 164 years, the Marines don't have a commander. I'm not even into the military-industrial complex, but this is like beyond the pale. Why is it that this guy gets to change everything? Oh, he wants his records expunged. Can you believe that BS? They were actually going to work on expunging his record. What is he, a juvenile delinquent? Close the file, don't let anyone know. While at the same time, they're banning books. burning trans people at the stake practically. I wouldn't doubt it. I bet it's going to be happening. You got brown shirt thugs causing mayhem in the streets, but somehow it's Antifa that caused it. And uppity women, too. We wouldn't have had to beat the crap out of you if you hadn't given us an excuse. Wow. Okay, blame the victim. That's what they do. All right. We could go on and on and on because it is Monday. But we do have a curated show for you, as you know, because we take the time to do it. And why don't we give you a heads up on what we have in store for you here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy as we begin in the Bistro Cafe of this fabulous salon. Yes, it is a fabulous salon. Okay, on the rest of the menu, U.S. honeybees just suffered their second deadliest year on record. Librarians were trained to defend intellectual freedom and fight book bans at the American Library Association's annual conference in Chicago. I don't think it includes fisticuffs, but if you're going to punch a Nazi, you might want to take a few classes. And a union official testified that the safety of railroads has been compromised by job cuts and time constraints. Well, we knew that before, but they need to codify it in sworn testimony, and they just did. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Greece's conservative New Democracy Party won a landslide election victory for its second 4-year term. We're sliding backwards, folks. And Mexico began imposing a 50% tariff on white corn. That's like hominy. White corn imports amid a trade dispute with the United States and Canada. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. At netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, and we thank Kelly for doing so. Kelly will also be attending Netroots Nation in Chicago, so we're looking forward to that. If you out there in radio listening land would look across the page at our homepage at netrootsradio.com to the left from that chat room link that's near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, over there to the left and down just a skosh is the link to our Patreon page. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, I cannot even express how wonderful and fabulous and important it is, because it helps us pay our bills and all the other costs incurred in running this powerhouse of resistance. Now, if you could afford to send us what you might spend on, I don't know, how about an espresso-type coffee drink? If you could send us those funds once a month, it does help us put a big dent in those bills and all the costs incurred in running this powerhouse of resistance, as we have been resisting for over 12 years now. And thank you for allowing us to fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended so many, many years ago. Over a dozen. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, Mastodon, and Spoutable, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of those, and we thank Tom for doing so and everything else. Thanks, Tom. Follow me on Twitter, Mastodon, and Spoutable at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's 10 minutes before showtime, but you can always access the show notes and links diaries by going to my social media feeds, because the links are right there, and you can go there and read the actual reportage, and I suggest you do. If you would like to follow the show, such as it is on Twitter, because there's not much there, but it's there, you can find us on Twitter at Cookbook West, and I assure you I will make an account for the show on both Mastodon and Spoutable real soon. It's funny how real life intrudes upon things that you intend to do in other aspects of your life, like the virtual kind. Anyway, find us at Cookbook West, but most importantly, if you could pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., 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 we would like that too. So do. All right. Let us now delve into, or tuck into, this first offering in the Bistro Cafe at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And it is out of Raw Story, it's by Common Dreams, out of Raw Story. The year that spanned April 1st of 2022 to April 1st of 23 was the second deadliest on record for U.S. honeybees. Beekeepers lost 48.2% of their managed hives, according to the initial results of the Bee-Informed Partnership's annual colony loss and management survey that was released late Thursday. This is a troubling loss number when we barely manage sufficient colonies to meet pollination demands in the U.S. as it is. Jeff Pettis, a former government bee scientist and current president of the Global Beekeeper Association, Epimondia, who was not involved in the study, but he told that to the AP anyway. It also highlights, he continued, the hard work that beekeepers must do to rebuild their colony numbers each year. Now, beekeepers are under substantial pressure to recover from losses by creating new colonies every year. Honeybees and pollinators in general are essential to biodiversity and agriculture, helping around 3/4 of the world's flowering plants and around 35% of its crops to reproduce while we still have them. Honeybees also pollinate alone more than 100 crops, including nuts, vegetables, berries, citrus, and melons, according to the AP. And according to me, while we still have them. But in 26, U.S. beekeepers began to report an alarming trend. Worker bees would simply abandon their hives, leaving the queen and larva to die on their own. Oh, a worker revolt! The emergence of colony collapse disorder, as the phenomenon came to be known, prompted the University of Auburn in Alabama and the University of Maryland to team up to survey American beekeepers on rates of colony collapse through the nonprofit Bee, as in bees, Bee-Informed Partnership. The worst year for colony survival was 2020 to 2021, when 50.8% of hives were lost. I would have just said 51% because I like to round up. That loss does not mean that a beekeeper goes out of business. Rather, they find a way to rebuild their hives, but doing it again and again takes a toll. Although the total number of honeybee colonies in the country has remained relatively stable over the last 20 years, loss rates remain high, indicating that beekeepers are under substantial pressure to recover from losses by creating new colonies every year. During 2022 and 2023, according to the survey, it was the winter that hit particularly hard, with 37.4% of hives lost. This was 13.2 percentage points higher than last year's loss and 9.9 percentage points higher than the average. I would have just said 10% because I like to round up. More than 60% of beekeepers also reported unacceptable losses during the winter of 2022 and 23, or losses above 21.3% of their hives. While honeybees face many threats, the leading cause of collapse reported by the beekeepers was the Varroa destructor mite, a parasite that makes bees more susceptible to viruses. The harm the parasite causes has increased over time. While it once took a 60% infestation to harm a colony, an infestation of just 1 to 2% can now have devastating consequences. Claire Savage of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. School librarian Jamie Gregory has been called a pedophile and groomer, bombarded with private messages threatening harm, accused of distributing pornography in schools, and had her personal address posted on social media. She takes it on the chin. I'm just not going to quit. I'm not going to let them call me that, especially when I've worked my whole entire life to get where I am, said Gregory, who was named the 2022 South Carolina School Librarian of the Year. The shocking allegations made her think, my whole entire adult life and all of my education and all my work, what if this is over? I'm not going to let that happen, Gregory said on Saturday to a room packed full of about 100 fellow librarians at a training session on fighting book bans at the American Library Association's annual meeting in Chicago. The attendees broke into applause at Gregory's declaration. Book bans and how to fight them is a major focus of this year's ALA's conference. The world's largest library event provides training and education for library professionals, according to the conference website. Librarians may attend sessions like the one Gregory spoke at, aimed at helping them confidently counter book challenges, fight legislative censorship, and ensure the freedom to read. The ALA conference hosts thousands of librarians, library staff, authors, publishers, and educators as several states push to restrict access to books in schools and libraries. Overwhelmingly, those about race, ethnicity, and LGBTQ+ topics. The association in March released data showing a record 1,269 demands to censor library books in the U.S. in 2022, a 20-year high. Josh Funk of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Freight rail car inspections are happening less often and are not as thorough as in years past due to staff cuts, time constraints, and regulatory loopholes, a union official testified on Friday during a federal hearing to examine the reasons behind a fiery train derailment in Ohio. The National Transportation Safety Board said in its preliminary report that an overheating wheel bearing likely caused the February 3rd Norfolk Southern derailment that sent a plume of toxic black smoke into the sky near East Palestine, Ohio. Several tank cars were damaged in the crash, and officials decided that 5 of them containing vinyl chloride needed to be blown open to release the chemical and prevent an explosion. That was nice. It's not unclear whether an inspector would have been able to catch that the bearing was failing because it is sealed within the rail car's axle. No inspector was ever given a chance. James Cox with the Transportation Communications Union testified during the second day of the NTSB hearing that the rail car that caused the derailment was not inspected by Norfolk Southern, even though it passed through 3 railroads where qualified inspectors were working. Cox said the lack of inspections reflects changes Norfolk Southern has made since 2019 to slash the ranks of car inspectors and other employees, and that the company increasingly uses a loophole in federal regulations to rely on trained crews to complete inspections instead of experts trained to do that work. He said trained crews look at just 12 points on a rail car instead of the 90 to 105 points a carman checks. Furthermore, Cox said carmen are pushed to inspect a car in just 1 minute instead of the roughly 3 minutes they had before the railroad started making operational changes over the past 4 years. Well, that's heartening. Let us then go to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, back in a flash. It's time for The Flash, another DCU movie, which means 2 things. 1, the male filmmakers will shorten Wonder Woman's battle skirt another few inches. Seriously, at this point it's more a low-hanging belt than a skirt. And 2, the DCU will find another way to make their heroes the main villains because, once again, the people behind the Detective Comics cinematic universe hate their heroes. I know you saw General Zod in the trailer. Trust me, he's just side dressing. The real threat to the multiverse, and I still hate multiverse stories, is the Flash himself. But let's give the Flash the benefit of the doubt. As I intimated in my Spider-Man Across the Multiverse review, maybe what we're seeing now is not just a self-serving canny bid to exploit nostalgia to leverage long-term intellectual property owned by corporations who have successfully lobbied Congress to extend the length of copyright laws in order to maintain their exclusive control over still profitable intellectual content. Maybe what we're seeing is a new postmodern hip-hop inspired, or at least analogous, narrative form that rejects the belief in the new idea or original storyline, except for the rare freak occurrence, and fully embraces the idea that all plots are just a reapplication of formulas and tropes. Thus, they are honored by the sample and made relevant by the remix. Through that lens, The Flash is really well done. Finding that he can go back in time, Barry Allen does so to make his mom not be dead, but he can't beat the butterfly effect and either creates or shifts into a world without a Superman, which is modern-day Tim Burton's 1989 Batman. So yay, Michael Keaton Bruce Wayne is back to teach Ezra Miller's Barry what he refused to accept from Ben Affleck Bruce, that we must honor the traumas that have molded us rather than enshrine them, thus letting them define us, which is not a new storyline, but still a worthwhile one. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Arthritis is common among veterans. Traumatic and overuse injuries during active duty are risk factors for developing arthritis. Fortunately, there are low-cost or no-cost strategies that can help veterans manage arthritis. Physical activity can reduce pain and improve function. It can also help improve mood and play a role in managing other chronic conditions, such as heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. You can do low-impact activities such as walking, biking, swimming, and water aerobics, all good forms of exercise. Arthritis-specific classes can help you get started. Information on classes, exercise programs, and tools are available at cdc.gov/arthritis. These resources can help reduce pain and improve function. Learning self-management techniques can help all veterans become more active, improve their overall quality of life, and thrive.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 a.m, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Good eating habits developed in childhood can last a lifetime, but getting children to eat their fruits and vegetables is a common problem. Eating them adds important nutrients, helps control weight, and reduces the risks for many serious illnesses. Children in the U.S. are eating more fruit. However, 60% of children get fewer fruits than recommended, and 93% don't get enough vegetables. Child care, schools, and school districts can help change this by meeting or exceeding federal nutrition standards for meals and snacks, including fruits and vegetables wherever food is offered, and helping children learn about and taste fruits and vegetables. At home, parents can eat a variety of fruits and vegetables with their children and provide them as snacks, even if it takes many tries. Also, parents can include their children when shopping for, growing, and preparing fruits and vegetables. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Ready for our little forest adventure?
Yes! Too much waiting for me. Yeah, I wanna go outside. I wanna be.
We're here.
Whoa, that was fast.
There's a forest closer than you think. Find a park or forest near you and music inspired by nature. DiscoverTheForest.org. Brought to you by USDA Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it twice a day.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it in the morning and before dinner.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it, and share it with my doctor. Nearly 1 in 2 U.S. adults have high blood pressure. That's why it's important to self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. It starts with a monitor.
Now that I know my blood pressure numbers, I talked with my doctor. We're getting those numbers down.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Learn more at manageyourbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
In Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Humpty Dumpty scornfully declares that when I use a word, it means just what I choose it to mean. So what does woke mean? It's become the pet political aspersion that today's kooky right-wing hucksters hurl at liberals, but the hurlers would be whopper-jawed to learn that it was actually coined by and for progressives. Indeed, it admonishes people to be awake to the dangers posed by hate-filled bigots and reactionaries like today's right-wing extremists. Surprising historical tidbit. The first person reported to have used the word was Huddie Ledbetter, the legendary black blues artist known as Leadbelly. Among his many classic songs was Scottsboro Boys, about 9 black teenagers falsely accused in 1931 of raping 2 Alabama white women. As a black musician who traveled the back roads of the Jim Crow South, Leadbelly warned others to pay attention when in a viciously racist state. Best stay woke, he cautioned. But, out of blind ignorance, blind arrogance, or both, today's adapters of the Jim Crow mentality have perverted common sense wokeness into a verbal whip to lash African Americans, immigrants, Democrats, women, LGBTQ people, and all others they don't like. Pretty much everyone who looks, thinks, prays, and acts different from them. How kooky? They've declared librarians, science, Mickey Mouse, and Bud Light to be their evil enemies. Don't be woke, they bark, demanding autocratic, plutocratic, and theocratic laws to coerce compliance with their own retrogressive bigotries. This is Jim Hightower saying, bear in mind that this is no longer a fringe cult, but the mainstream of the Republican Party, including its top congressional leaders, presidential wannabes, and state officials. Actually, you can easily comprehend what these Humpty Dumptys really mean by their don't be woke war cry. Just substitute the word sane for woke. Howdy-ho, folks, and thanks for tuning in to my Hightower radio commentaries. And guess what? There's even more Hightower waiting for you online. Subscribers to my Substack newsletter, Jim Hightower's Lowdown, get commentaries, articles, interviews with progressive sparklies, live events, historical nuggets, and more. Go to jimhightower.substack.com to sign up, and you'll get more. That's jimhightower.substack.com.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1893. That was the day that Illinois Governor John Peter Altgeld pardoned Samuel Fielden, Oscar Neebe, and Michael Schwab, who were imprisoned for their alleged role in the Haymarket bombing of 1886. 8 men had been accused of throwing a bomb at a workers' rally in Chicago. 4 were hung, 1 died in prison before he could be executed, and 3 were incarcerated. Governor Altgeld had been born in Germany. He was a progressive leader who helped pass worker safety laws and child labor laws. Efforts to free the 3 Haymarket prisoners had been underway since their sentencing. During the trial, there was no physical evidence linking any of the accused men to the crime. Governor Altgeld agreed to look into the case. He issued a report outlining his findings. At the end, he concluded, quote, the trial was not fair. He wrote, quote, I'm convinced that it is clearly my duty to act I grant an absolute pardon to Samuel Fielden, Oscar Neebe, and Michael Schwab this 26th day of June, 1893. This pardon came just one day after a monument to the martyrs was dedicated at the cemetery where the 5 martyrs were buried. Today, part of Governor Altgeld's pardon is inscribed on a plaque on the back side of that monument. Governor Altgeld paid a political price for the pardon. He was attacked by the press. The Chicago Tribune attacked his German heritage, declaring there was, quote, not a drop of true American blood in his veins. He does not reason like an American, does not feel like one, and consequently does not behave like one. In 1896, he lost his bid at re-election for standing up for justice. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 62 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs in the mid-80s, abundant sunshine throughout the day, winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, clear to partly cloudy overnight with lows in the mid to upper 50s, winds out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, then partly cloudy skies tomorrow with highs again in the mid-50s, winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Grass pollen remains high here in the town of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is still in the good range, so it's ticked up to 42 parts per million. And that daytime UV index also is very high at level 9, so do take care if you have those numbers in your area. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.06 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles. And relative humidity is at 71%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 71 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 75 and sunny. Rome is 88 and sunny. Kyiv is 70 degrees and fair. Kabul is 73 degrees with rain showers. Hong Kong is 85 degrees and fair. Tokyo is 75 and mostly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 55 and clear. San Francisco, California is 55 degrees and cloudy with a small craft advisory on the bay for heavy fog. And New York is 74 degrees Fahrenheit with thunder and a flash flood warning. So take care. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Elena Bekatoros and Derek Gatopoulos of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. Greece's conservative New Democracy Party leader Kyriakos Mitsotakis vowed to speed up reforms following his landslide victory in the country's second election in 5 weeks yesterday, Sunday, that granted him a comfortable parliamentary majority to form a government for a second four-year term. Jubilant supporters gathered outside party headquarters in Athens, cheering, clapping, setting off fireworks, and waving blue and white party flags. Near complete results show his party won just over 40% of the vote, crushing his main rival, the left-wing Syriza party, which was struggling to reach 18%, 2 percentage points lower than the last elections in May. Sunday's vote came just over a week after a migrant ship capsized and sank off the western coast of Greece, leaving hundreds of people dead and missing and calling into question the actions of Greek authorities and the country's strict migration policy. But the disaster, one of the worst in the Mediterranean in recent years, did not affect the election, with domestic economic issues at the forefront of voters' minds. Mitsotakis' party was projected to win 158 of Parliament's 300 seats, thanks to a change in the electoral law that grants the winning party bonus seats. The previous election in May, conducted under a proportional representation system, left him 5 seats short of a majority, despite winning nearly 41% of the vote, and he had decided to seek a stronger mandate in a second election, rather than to seek to form a coalition government with a smaller party. Voter turnout, however, was low yesterday, Sunday, at just under 53% of eligible voters, compared to just over 61% in the May vote. In all, 8 parties were surpassing the 3% threshold to enter Parliament, including an ultra-religious party and a far-right party backed by a jailed former lawmaker from the Nazi-inspired and now outlawed Golden Dawn Party.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Staff at the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Mexico on Saturday began imposing a 50% tariff on white corn imports, a move the president says looks to boost national production and prevent imports of genetically modified corn. The measure, published late on Friday in the Mexican government's official gazette, will be in force until the end of the year and occurs amid a trade dispute between Mexico and its North American trade partners, Canada and the United States, over genetically modified corn. White corn was among the basic foods that were exempted from tariffs earlier this year in an attempt by the Mexican government to control inflation. But according to the decree, the decision has not generated a significant impact on the decrease in prices in the national market, so it is considered appropriate to eliminate it. At 5.84% in May, the Mexican government considers inflation more or less under control. Mexico imports some white corn, the kind used for human consumption, mainly from the U.S. and South Africa. But since the tariff goes against the U.S.-Mexico-Canada free trade agreement, it could complicate the trade dispute that the country already has with the U.S. and Canada over GM corn. Mexico wants to restrict genetically modified white corn for human consumption and eventually also veto genetically modified yellow corn for animal feed. The U.S. and Canada said that would harm trade in the region. Mexico has been importing modified feed corn from the U.S. for years, buying about $3 billion worth annually. But the U.S. and Canada have said that Mexico's fear of the dangers of genetically modified corn is not grounded in science. Earlier this month, Canada said it would join a trade dispute panel that the U.S. requested over Mexico's proposed limits on imports of genetically modified corn. The U.S. government asked that the dispute process be formally opened on the 2nd of June after talks with the Mexican government failed to yield results. A panel of experts would have about 6 months to study the complaint and release its findings. Trade sanctions could follow if Mexico was found to have violated the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Free Trade Agreement. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Terrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.